Hi, everyone, and welcome to, I think it's like the second session of the DG Art Fest. My name is Eugene Kavuma, and today we have a panel from across Africa, some really, really brilliant minds, and they're going to be sharing with us from their experience, but also from what they have observed, the third of the DG Art Fest. So from their experience and from what they have observed, how you can brand yourself as an artist. And the principal reason for you doing this is not just so you are known to be some cool artist and whatnot, but that so that you are able to continue to make a sustainable living out of what it is that you're doing. Because I mean, if it can't pay the bills, then it will probably stay a hobby. So the goal of this particular conversation is to demonstrate through proven methods and experiences, but even like really epic insights and thoughts from our panelists, how you can make this happen. My name is Eugene Kavuma. I am a design enthusiast, I'll put it that way. But among other things, I, I am the co-founder of uh, Design Festival here in Uganda. Uh, Kampala Design Week. It is Uganda out to Ding. Hello.
Yeah, I think your connection had broken off.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah. Sorry. So on the if you've been with us this whole time, checking out what it is that we've been up to at the DJ Art Fest, I know that you are excited to see who our guests, our panelists are, and they do stretch from all across Africa. Sorry about that. So yes, on our panel today. So that's my name. My name is Eugene Kavuma, co-founder Kampala Design Week, but also I lead the tribe here at Motive. Motive is East Africa's largest makerspace, and it's a conglomerate. It pulls together at least around 4,500 creatives every year. On our Deborah Anderson, Deborah, would you like to introduce?
Hi, my name is Deborah Anderson. I go by the Black Woman Animator. I'm not from the continent, but I'm glad to be here anyway. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and now live in Los Angeles, California. My specialty is 3D modeling, specifically hard surface modeling, and I also have a YouTube channel called Black Woman Animator where I interview Black animation professionals across the diaspora. And anywhere from veterans who have been in the industry for over 50 years to my peers who are doing their thing. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. Is Solomon Jagwe on the call with us? Hi, Solomon. How are you? Are you
Yes, I
here with
am.
us today? Yep.
I am. Thank you so much for this invitation. And by the way, I know some of these people here.
This is a really cool
I
studio,
think we
man.
are friends with Deborah on LinkedIn somewhere. We've chatted off and on.
Solomon.
So my name is Solomon Jagwe. I am based here in the US, but I'm born and bred in Uganda in East Africa. So I was born deep in a village in Masaka, and I came here in 1996. Back, I think that was the time when Michael Jordan was still playing in the NBA. So if you wanna, I guess, age me. But I'm glad to be here. I am the creator and director of the Adventures of Nkoza and Nancha. I also have an animation studio that is based here in the US called Soul Studios. And my team, the people that I work with across the globe, some friends in Uganda. You might already know Bruno Sekandi. He's an awesome modeler. And then I also have some people in the UK and also here in the US. Again, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today.
First of all, I want to appreciate the power of the internet and the power of certificates and branding. You are a good example of where we're going to start from. Nkoza and Nancha, even though like someone we hadn't talked about it, it's right there in front of us. Yeah, we'll come back to that later. I'd like to have a conversation or invite Kabelo Maka as well. Kabelo, are
Hi,
you?
for having me. So my name is Gabelo Maka. I am an animator and a illustrator. I am the creative director of Cablo Studios, which is an award-winning animation and illustration studio based in Johannesburg, South Africa. That's where I am right
Wow.
now. And we do short films, we do series, and we also specialize in medical animation, where we create animated stories for the medical industry, and we make medicine easy to understand, and we tell heartfelt stories, and they just happen to have medical themes. The other things that I also do is I run a podcast called The Business of Animation Podcast, which is on Spotify and YouTube. And I also teach animation. My animation students call me Miss K. So that's me.
Do you know any idea why they chose to shorten it?
Miss K. Oh, I told them to call me that because I'm still in my 20s and they're also in their 20s. And I was like, we can't be calling me Cabello and be friends. It's not going to work. So I said, you can call me Cablo or you can call me Miss K. And they gravitated towards Miss K.
It does. It sounds a lot cooler anyway. I would have done the same.
Just
Well, that's what you're going for. You wanted to, make yourself cool. And is Hamid Ibrahim with us today? Hamid? All right. He may not have joined. I wanted to start with you, Miss K. Is it okay if I call you Miss K?
sure.
It sounds like the space that you chose is rather niched out within the animation space. Any particular reason that led you to gravitate towards that, and has that what have been the key learnings of that choice of choosing to niche out and gravitate towards a particular area, and perhaps the key lessons out of that? Yeah.
Sure. I must make sure to answer all three levels of that question.
Right. Yeah.
So the reason why I started Cablo Studios was I was actually struggling to find work. Um, Here in South Africa, a lot of the studios they will do advertising or they will do outsourced work for other studios outside of the country. And when you are a recent graduate, they actually still expect for you to have more experience than what you have. So I was struggling to find work. I finished an internship. I finished my degree. I did a 4-year degree. And then I thought, well, I'm not trying to be a statistic. Um, I found that it was surprisingly cheap to register a company. So I did. I registered a company and hired myself in 2017. And then my mother, who's a medical doctor, she's been a doctor my whole life. She was like, why don't we do medical animation? And I was like, I want to make films. I want to make movies. Medical, what do you mean? Even though it was brilliant. But I did a pilot project for her where I animated the process of her practice as an anesthesiologist and how the patient would experience that whole process. And then we realized, okay, cool, this thing is a legitimate thing we can do. And we chose medical animation as a niche, as our unique way of entering into the industry. And so it was very slow at the beginning. We were pitching to pharmaceutical companies, we were pitching to medical aids. And then eventually we got our first client. And then we also got funding from the National Film and Video Foundation and from Gauteng Film Commission, which are funding bodies here in South Africa, government funding
Yeah.
bodies. They funded our first short film called 3 Teaspoons of Sugar. And that was the animated documentary I created about how 3 members of my family have struggled and persevered through living with diabetes. And that short film went to Annecy, it went to Cardiff, it goes to science and to animation film festivals. And that was kind of double proof that not only can we create animations that are like more explainer type of animations, but we could also create medical stories that people can engage with a concept and feel the journey of a human and then also learn something. And that's been how we've been able to differentiate ourselves and benefit from doing that. I mean, we also just finished our 3rd short film called The Little Teaspoon of Sugar, which is a sequel to 3 Teaspoons, where in 3 Teaspoons we covered diabetes in adults. And now in Little Teaspoon, it's a narrative story about a high school girl who gets diabetes and how she learns to overcome it and still have a full life despite the illness. I hope I answered the question completely, but really for us, medical animation was a way to differentiate ourselves because animation is very competitive.
Yes, and I think one of the things I pick out of that is the fact that you have your mother who is an anesthesiologist.
Anesthesiologist, yeah. Don't just.
I feel like doctors go out of their way to create just some really complicated terms. Like I feel like it helps to have some kind of connection, some kind of background from that line. Like I'm sure that when she was available to make sure that the work or the terminologies that you are using were right, and that sort of made you guys a lot more credibility in the space. Am I right?
Yes. So she makes it so that people believe us when we say we can take your content and it's dry. Some of the things are so dry. We can take that content that's heavy and dry and turn it into an appealing story that still has the medical integrity that it requires.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Miss K. I want to drag in Solomon. Solomon, how are you doing? I want to see your screen again. It has so many.
I'm doing great. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yes. Well, so working in the creative and culture space, one of the things I have come across is the value of basing your inspiration in your culture. That's kind of what makes you often stand out or offers you an opportunity to come out on top of the crowd. But it's not always that it works. A lot of people actually try to do that and it doesn't. What do you think made sure that when you best your inspiration, I'm assuming looking at the names and the work that's done out of that, it's kind of best out of your Ugandan heritage. What do you think made it such that it was able to stand out amongst all the others?
I think one thing that I always look at is what our past kind of dictates how we approach art. And I grew up in boarding schools for all my life, all the way from Makonzi boarding school to Budo Junior to King's College Budo, and then I to the I think the hostel in Makerere College School. And so growing up in the village in Masaka, I mean, I grew up without entertainment when I was very little, about until the age of 3. So my grandmother used to tell me stories. And the only entertainment I had was really they would leave me to play in the garden in the matoke,
Also, really
plantation.
affordable entertainment,
Right. So I didn't even know what a TV was at the time, let alone even a radio. So I had to entertain myself by creating my own toys from sticks and, like banana fiber and things like that. So that's how I came up, growing up. And when I moved to the US, I think growing up here and getting married here and having kids here, it kind of created this desire in me to share that experience with my kids, because they have no idea what it's like to be in Uganda and what kind of culture we have. So I wanted them to be able to identify with my language and my history and my background. And when you are an immigrant and you brought up here in the US, they'll categorize you as black, So, but yet, if you're Ugandan, if you're Nigerian, if you're Ghanaian, Kenyan, South African, when you're born here in the US, you kind of are disconnected from your culture, because growing up in Uganda, you know how they say it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, you really depend on your aunties and uncles and grandparents to be able to teach you these morals through storytelling and things like that. So that's what set me on that journey. Is initially it was just me trying to help my kids and my wife be able to have a resource, but then once I started talking with other parents here in the diaspora, I realized they had the same need as I. And that's when I kind of opened it up and created an app that anyone in the world could access with animated content in it.
Why animated content? Why not live action?
So again, going back to when I was growing up, so after the 1979 war with Idi Amin Dada, my parents moved to Motundwe, in the outskirts of Kampala. And I think that's the one time that I started watching TV. I don't know if you remember this, but growing up, we used to wait until 6 p.m. in the evening for the TVs to come on. And so we didn't
They
have
had those
TVs.
lines, right? And then at
Yes.
midnight at 11:59, they'd
Uh-huh.
switch off.
And they had that little song, do you know Kukuba Kalu? Like that. So that you would, when you hear that interlude song, you run. We would all, first of all, our parents would make sure that we showered before we even sat in front of the TV. So you had this Vaseline shining legs and everything. So you're sitting here and waiting. And that to me opened my eyes to what animated content could do, for a child, because it opened my eyes up to what was in the world, like things like I think we watched reruns of Batman, and we would read comic books of Tintin and Asterix and Obelix and things like that. So that's really, it drew me into how can I take my art, my still drawings, and then bring them to life. And I think that's where I pivoted towards animation, at 3D animation.
Awesome, man. And I know that the gist of today's conversation is on how we have branded ourselves as creatives, as studios, but also as individual artists, and how that has created a difference within what we are able to sort of bring on.
Right.
How much effort in regards to creating a product, which is really critical, versus selling the product, which is the whole branding and marketing. What percentage of effort do you feel like you put towards the latter, which is the branding and marketing of the work? Because I often find that there's always the assumption that build a good product, people shall come, and it's juxtaposed with build a good product, a decent product, sell it so that people can come, they test it out, they give you an idea on how it can be better. And then along the way, you build brand loyalty and people are like, oh, we supported and helped improve that thing. And we sort of rose together. How much effort would you say you put towards one or the other? Which one did you emphasize the most, do you think?
I think growing up in boarding school, for the rest of for a long part of my life, is you learn, first of all, to navigate dealing with different people, and especially because we're from Uganda, which is so diverse. So if you're in a boarding school, chances are you're going to see people from the east, west, north, and we all speak different languages. Some languages I don't even understand, and yet we're all Ugandan. So in a way, you learn to study people. At least I did as an artist. I studied how people communicated. I studied how different languages conveyed, because we are blessed to have that kind of rich texture in terms of intonation and different dialects and things like that. So coming to the US, I learned, I started to see what advertising does, and how it takes, like, once you prepare a brand, you create an image, that image needs to be able to communicate across, all kinds of demographics. So for example, in Uganda, we have a word for your, I don't know how even to say it, but for your buttocks, right? We have a word for that is kind of offensive, right? But when I first came to the US, I saw Taco Bell. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I even going to tell my grandmother, that this is where I'm going to eat from, right? Because Taco Bell, for us, the word is kind of offensive in Uganda, but here it works. And then the slogan is, it's all in the buns, So I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Like, if they put up a Taco Bell in Uganda, you won't get like clients, because it will be offensive, culturally offensive, if you put it that way. So I studied the landscape, studied how I could actually promote my product. And I remember when I was in vacation, like senior 4 vacation, I used to do paintings and sculptures. And the way I would sell them, because I didn't have social media at the time, I didn't have a cell phone. I couldn't even call people up and tell them, can I deliver something like that? So what I did is I made friends in boarding school, and I asked them to invite me during the holidays. I said, could you please invite me? I just need to come visit your home. So they would invite me. I would study the color palette of their home. I'll study the layout, what kind of motif that they like. I'll go home, create a painting that is tailored to the color of their choice, so their kind of palette. And that's how I was able to sell my paintings in Uganda, because you customize it to the client. I really saw them as a client. That's what broke me into marketing, and understanding that when you create a product, you still have to study the target audience, because if you don't, you're just going to be like sounding out in the desert somewhere with a bullhorn, Whereas if you, like, in Uganda, when you're driving through Masaka on your way to Lukai and all those places, there are places where you stop and people are holding up meats like sticks with meat on them, either chicken or pork or whatever, and they're shouting on the top of their head. So your product has to come through, and the way they do it, the way they actually come through is they give you jabuli. You get to test it before you can actually experience it. So what I did with Nkoza and Nancha, I knew that it would take a long time for people to buy into the idea. And in Uganda, we have a saying that you want to see something before you can actually use it. So amaso go muganda gali mungalo. That's what the saying how the saying goes. And so I decided to offer the app for free. Like all the content in the app is free for you to use, So as the audience grew, then we transitioned to a paying system in app purchases. And I started I had to make sure that, because my interest was just creating content that would help parents. And that's how I was able to try to target that kind of demographic. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. Thank you so much, Solomon. Sorry, I dropped off for a bit there. I'm trying to switch out places. I'd like to go to Deborah Anderson. I noticed that in bits of your profile, you have done work with some really, really big studios. Quick question: how did you? And I think this is going to be a similar question to Raymond. How much do you feel like branding played, personal branding, but also the branding of your own studio, played in getting you those opportunities?
Well, for me, the personal branding to get a job at Digital Imation, which is in South Korea, is very like an internal brand of, you have to understand who you are and how you want to be successful. So when I was in South Korea, I was an English teacher, and I was about to go back to America because I wasn't using my degree in animation, and so I decided to um, tour some animation studios because I had never seen an animation studio before. And at the end of one of the tours, the people asked me if I had a demo reel, which I didn't. And so that was like a that story combined with graduating from college in 2008, which was a like a really bad time in America, which is why I went to go teach English in Korea. I was trying to get a job without the proper preparation. So, people know in 3D animation, if you're a modeler, animator, whatever, you need a demo reel. But I was trying to have a website with just images, and that's why I wasn't getting a job. And I kind of knew that, but hey, you're
host.
young and dumb.
You host.
So once I went to Korea and they asked me for a demo reel, I told them that I didn't have one, but I could. And so I went back to Gwangju, in between classes after school on the weekend. I spent time doing my first demo reel, and then I finished it pretty much 4 months to the day, and sent it back. And then they offered me a job. So I think there's definitely that external branding, but you also have to brand to yourself and understand who you are as a person, and then understand what works with the external world to be successful.
Yeah. Thank you. Lukman has joined us, and I think I want to pose the same question to him. Lukman Ali recently managed to get his film onto Netflix, and for Uganda, it was such a big win because he's the first person to get his movie onto Netflix. I wanted to find out from Lukman, how much do you feel like the name Lukman Ali, the brand Lukman Ali, played in getting your craft onto that platform? Mr. Ali? Sorry, we lost him. He dropped off for a bit there. I want to continue with you, Deborah. So then you realize this handicap, the thing that you had tried to dodge and work around, and as we say, that you're young and naive, and the hope is that these guys won't check that out, and you'll be the special one with whom they will give this free pass because you have a really good vibe, and and you explained yourself out of the way. Have you worked with any younger animators since, and what has been your conversation with them regarding how they position themselves in order to win the really worthwhile opportunities? Have you mentored anyone particularly regarding this area, and what has been your conversation with them regarding how they can position themselves?
So I consider my Black Woman Animator platform kind of that mentoring, and it allowed me to impact more people because I was living in New Orleans, where there is no animation industry, and I was doing like workshops, classes, and I kind of felt bad that I was preparing these people for industry that did not exist. But also, if anybody's from like Louisiana, you know that people from Louisiana either stay in Louisiana or they leave and come back. So it was like culturally, it wasn't good. Like if it was some other state in the United States where people are more willing to leave, I wouldn't have felt that bad. So I decided to take my platform online. And so another reason I did that was because even though I was surrounded by animation since I was a kid, like a lot of my peers are like, oh, I saw Disney and I wanted to do that. And I was like, me personally, I saw Disney and I was like, oh, I want to become an electrical engineer because I'm good at math. And I didn't find animation as a career until my senior year of high school. So another reason I created my Black Woman Animator platform was because I want to get that exposure out that this is a possible career that you can have.
And have you found it? Are you able to list maybe an example of a success situation where someone actually listening to your advice through that platform has then pursued it and has gotten back to you and said, "Hey, look, it's because of you that all of this epic stuff happened." Have you had any opportunity for someone to do that?
Well, if we kind of go backtrack to before I went online and when I was doing like speaking engagements in New Orleans, I went to speak to I'm trying to remember. There's a guy, Henry Costin. I think I spoke to him either at the 100 Black Men in New Orleans, or I think it was 100 Black Men, and he was in their mentor program. And I went to speak to them about animation, and he contacted me either this year or last year and told me how impactful that was to see me speak, and that motivated him, and now he has his own company. And that was crazy because he said he was in 8th grade at the time, and I'm just like, how many years, how fast is time passing where you're like an adult now? And I went to talk to you when you're like in 8th grade. I'm like, what, how is that even possible? What is the math? But that was one instance where and I've had other people reach out to me about Black Woman Animator and how it's had an impact, and they like being able to see all of the Black animation professionals that look like them who are have been successful in the industry.
I think that something I noticed is that in living and working in a country like that's predominantly Black, like Uganda, there's things you take for granted. Everyone is a certain shade of brown and black, and so like it doesn't quite reflect as much when someone else who looks like you does it. But the more I've had opportunities to travel, the more I've noticed that it's actually a big deal. And then in certain corporate structures, you realize, well, within our space, you realize that unless you're a particular color, it's going to always be a challenge to get there. I want to.
Yeah, I always tell.
Sorry,
well, my theory is that African people and Caribbean people don't realize the superpower that they have with coming from countries where everybody looks like you, from the prince to the pauper, because being a Black American, you have really no home. So that's why Blackness is important in America, because we don't have Blackness is our culture because it was stripped from us. So I always say how in America, Black people, you know, we were told we were nothing. Was like our great grandfathers were told we were nothing. Slavery. Our fathers were told they were nothing. Civil rights, Jim Crow. We're told we're nothing. School to prison pipeline. So to have a country where you come from where everybody looks like you is very powerful. And I feel like that's why people from African and Caribbean countries are very successful when they come here, because they don't have that mental prison that Black Americans grow up with. And it's very hard to, even if you come from, you know, I'm middle class, my father has a PhD, it's still a reoccurring, you know, thing that you're told that you really are nothing in this country. So I feel like African and Caribbean people have a very big superpower with coming from a country where everybody looks like you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I wanted to introduce Hamid. Hamid has joined us. How are you doing, Hamid?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you guys doing? Sorry about the delay. I was in another meeting and I just managed to get some free time right now.
Good. Being in many meetings means that you've done your branding work really well. Is that the case?
A bit too well, if I'm to say, actually. I'm tired of the meetings, I'm gonna be honest, but it gotta get done. But
yeah. Would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Cool. My name is Ahmed Ibrahim. I was born in Uganda, actually, grew up in Uganda, moved to the UK 10 years ago now. Studied college and university here. Currently, the co-founder of Kugali, which is a comic book visual storytelling company that has the goal of being the home of African storytelling. That's our main goal, so telling stories from Africa. That's one of the main things we do. We started off with comic books, then went to augmented reality, where we became an official Snapchat creator. Then from an augmented reality person, we went into animation recently with, I think the big announcement was when we became the first company in history to close a deal with Disney Animation. to create a feature-length animation. So when you look at usually a Disney animation announcement, it's only Pixar and Disney and their own Pixar. This is the first time it's going to be another entity, which is Kugali and then Disney. And I'm very proud because most of our employees are living in Africa who have lived in Africa most of their lives. So that's short.
That's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. Is there like a clapping button? No?
I'll imagine the claps. I can hear
Yeah,
them.
I was hoping there'll be like a clapping button and balloons dropping across the screen and whatnot. No, that's a really big deal. But I think to tie it into the conversation that we're having today, how much do you believe, or what's the work that went into positioning yourself in the market? How much work? Okay, could you give a brief description of the volume of work that went into positioning yourself in the market? What level of branding was involved in order to support the achievements that you guys have gotten?
It's always, in the beginning bit, it was really hard. It's hard right now, but it's hard in a different way. The beginning bit, it's hard in a way where you're pushing for something that you don't know will happen. So my story generally is I was working in MPC. I think this is Digifest. I'm sure a lot of people know MPC. So I was working there as a rigger. And what happened was I saw an animation from, I think it was Lagos at that time, and it looked good to me. And I showed it to my colleagues and they roasted it. Now, I'm working MPC. At that time, I was working on the Lion King remake. And I left that job to start Kugali, to go Kugali full-time to try and grow that. Now, you can imagine the first big kind of jump was, how do I go from this thing here, which was guaranteed money, to now a position where you don't know if you're going to make money that month? I think that's the hardest thing. That kind of difficult is very difficult when you don't know when you're going to eat. Versus right now, it's, you know when you're going to eat, it's just more work is a difficult thing. So the branding in the beginning, I think we traveled a lot. I think the craziest one is there's a month where I was in 6 different countries in that 1 month, and we went to four different Comic Cons that month. And I was traveling all over Europe. Any Comic Con we could get our hands to, we went there. And there was that great thing of every single time we'd go to a country and we'd say this is an African comic book, there was always that surprise like, wait, people in Africa make comic books? Exactly. It was like, and people would not believe it, right? So it became like a tagline for us. And some people would buy the books, they would read it. And again, with the branding thing, the quality of work really matters. Because if, let's say, you're the first example of an African comic book people see and it's garbage, that's going to tarnish it for everybody else who comes after. So it was really important for our work to be really good in the beginning as well. So in the beginning, there was definitely a lot of legwork. Like we traveled a lot. Yeah.
I mean, sorry. When it comes to quality, who determined how good your work was? Was it the person who was buying? Was it the people who are making? Who determined what was good quality work? Or did you benchmark it against something else?
I usually benchmark it against, because I like to look at things in terms of first principles, i.e. there are things which are good because the fans said they're good, there are things which are good which are just technically good, and then there's just things that give people a higher level of enjoyment, and people maybe cannot explain why they're good or not, like how, if they're good or not, right? It's just people enjoy it. So I'd like to first get the basic one in, which is technically we've ticked all the boxes to a degree. Right? Now, obviously, if you know anything about creativity, it means you're breaking the rules. So if everything you've done technically is 100% on point, it's probably not that unique or new.
Yeah.
So there has to have that secret sauce to it, which makes it different. And that's where the enjoyment comes in. So there are 2 things I usually benchmark. So I don't go off what one individual says. I go off one, technically, does it tick a lot of the boxes? That's number 1. And then number 2, after it ticks the boxes, are people enjoying this and are people getting a novelty experience from it? Like, is this different from many things they've seen? So I would say it's more of an art director's job in that case, or let's say a chief creative officer, which in our case in Kugali, which is pretty much making sure we have those 2 standards met.
Yeah. Awesome. I've just been informed that there's a lot more people who have joined us since we made the introductions. So I'd like you to introduce yourself then, guys. Guys, we're going to do this thing again. We're going to reintroduce ourselves just one more time, very briefly. And this is the second time you get to say how awesome you are. How cool is that? So yes, Hamid, you go first.
Okay. My name is Ahmed Ibrahim. I was born in Uganda, currently living in the UK. I've been here for 10 years now. Started off my career as a portrait artist, concept artist. Then I went to modeling, rigging, and currently I'm an art director for a show we're doing with Disney, Kugali, which is a brand I own. I'm a co-founder of Kugali, and Kugali is an African storytelling company with the goal of making sure African stories are shown to the world in the highest quality it can be. What else should I add? I think that'll be a good introduction for now.
Awesome. And yes, Cabello, Miss K, do you mind just introducing yourself one more time?
Sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. My name is Cabello Maka. I go by Cablo on the internet, and my animation students call me Miss K. I am an animation director and a 2D animator illustrator based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I run an award-winning animation and illustration studio called Cablo Studios, where we do short films, we do series, and we also do medical animation. I also run a podcast called The Business of Animation Podcast, where I share my story of how do you even do an animation business. Yeah.
I want to catch you about that one after. I like things that have business and creativity attached to each other. I want to
Sure.
catch you. Solomon, please just reintroduce yourself one more time.
All right, thank you so much. My name again is Solomon Jagwe. I am based here in the US, but I'm originally from Uganda, born and bred Masaka. I'm a Masaka product. And I am the creator and director of the Adventures of Nkoza and Nancha, and also the co-founder of Soul Studios. Nkoza and Nancha is our flagship product, but we also do cinematics and animated short films and things like that. I love to draw. I've been drawing since I was a kid. And it's great to actually see other Ugandans doing awesome things. Great to see you, Hamid, by the way. Thank you.
Solomon. Been a minute.
Yes.
I feel left out, guys. I feel left out. And Deborah, do you mind introducing yourself one more time? And then
Hi, my name is Deborah Anderson. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and now living in Los Angeles, California. I've been recently adopted by South Africa by way of Miss K. I am a 3D modeler by trade, specifically hard surface modeling, and I have a platform called Black Woman Animator, where I do videos on YouTube and interview Black animation professionals, anywhere from people who have been in the industry for 50 plus years to my peers who are doing awesome things. So that is me.
thank you so much, Deborah. I want to jump back to you, Miss K, because I like the business of animation, and I want to have a conversation around that. You run a training, you run a class, you sort of try to get animators to understand business better. Is that it?
I'll explain it. So I used to be a lecturer full time. I taught 2D animation, storyboarding, and digital painting. And then I had to leave my full time job to do Cablo Studios because I was working on my first short film, 3 Teaspoons of Sugar. And
really catchy title, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I thought long and hard on that title because titles can be very difficult to do. So when I had to start doing my studio full time, and when I was lecturing, my students used to ask me questions all the time because they would see I would bring my client projects to class so that they understood that what I'm teaching them is what I'm living. So they would ask me things like, Miss K, how do I invoice? They would ask me, how do I hire a team when I'm working with them? And then let's say I'm working on an advert for a nasal spray. I would show them what I'm working on and what I'm thinking about when I'm working on a client project, because the process is very different compared to if I'm working on my own original project. And so when I stopped teaching, I was like, oh man, I miss my students. Let me make something to kind of still keep in contact with them. So I made the Business of Animation podcast, which is on Spotify and YouTube and wherever else podcasts exist. And I did that because I was finding that the things that I was learning while building my studio, nobody taught me. So in film school and art school, they will teach you technically how to create the things you need to create, because that's important. There's no point in having a studio if you don't know how to make a good animation. but they don't teach you how to monetize that skill. They don't teach you how to manage a team, how to hire. They don't teach you how to manage a production. They don't teach you how to budget. They don't teach you how to create a product that sells. They don't teach you where to sell your product. So I created the Business of Animation podcast really to kind of chronicle the lessons that I'm learning on the go, whether it's how I make money with short films. Because people keep telling us you can't make money with short films, and at Kevlar Studios we prove that every day, and we make efforts to prove that every day. Or it's interviews. I've done an interview with the CEO of Triggerfish Animation Studios. I did an interview with the creator of Calipeg, which is a 2D animation software for the iPad. After doing that interview, I felt like I need to buy an iPad. So it's a combination of those things, and I also love doing panels like this because then I get to meet people and then bug them and then bring them onto the podcast.
And then adopt them, you know. I feel
So
like
that's
once again, you guys are just leaving me out. The guys are leaving me out. You're adopting people.
So really that's why I made the podcast, because I missed my students and I wanted a way to connect with them. But then I also realized the things that I was learning while making a studio were actually relevant, not just to me, but to people elsewhere, on who I've met in real life and on the internet. And since making the podcast, it then goes to countries that I didn't expect it to go to, like what's it? Belgravia? Countries that I don't even know how to pronounce, are actually listening to the podcast. So that's exciting for me as well.
So I've always thought this way though, that perhaps the reason they don't teach business stuff in creative academies, for example, is that there's an assumption that you're going to find someone else who has gone to business school to work with to do that. So why do you need to learn that? And if you look at how the Industrial Revolution kind of worked out, is that you picked a thing that you are good at and just sort of stuck yourself and did that specific thing extensively. What's the value of a creative actually needing to learn all this other business stuff, for example? Isn't it taking away from them actually, focusing on being able to create and create much better?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the same reason why I started Kevlar Studios. I had an internship that lasted for a year, and then afterwards I was not hired full-time at the place, and really the place was just me and the guy who owned the freelance business. And when I was applying for work, I couldn't find work. They expected me to have more experience than what I had as a graduate. So because I couldn't find work, I was like, I'm going to hire myself. That's why I created a studio. And for me, I hate the stereotype that an artist needs to struggle, because we live in a world where everything is designed. My computer is designed, my microphone is designed, my cell phone is designed. And so artists are able to make money. It's just we have been taught that we can't, because it seems impossible, because it seems like you have to get discovered, because it seems like you have to insert yourself into an existing machine. And this kind of era that we're living in has proven that people who are recent graduates don't necessarily get a job immediately, because the market is so competitive, because people do downsize. And if anything, COVID-19 has probably proved that the most, that if anybody's not needed in the machine, they can quickly get removed so that the business can keep running. So that's why, to me, it's important for artists to have some sort of appreciation and some sort of knowledge of the business side of what they're doing, because you might have to pivot. You might not be able to just, cool, I've finished school, I'm just gonna go and work at Pixar. Not all of us can do that. And especially on our continent, where our industries are still developing and are only now starting to pick up attention, because the world suddenly realized, oh, we want to hear African stories from Black people because we are interested in seeing something new. All of a sudden, the world is excited to see what we have to say. And so we have to now learn, okay, cool, how do I turn this into something positive? So that's why I do podcasts.
Thank you, Miss K. I really love the African accent you pull. I think Lukman has joined us. Lukman, are you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, 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 yes. We can hear you. So as you know, we are having a conversation around how to brand yourself as a creative, and then and hit the somewhat Lukman levels. I have a question. Did you, when you're starting out, was this the goal to kind of set the standard, or did you find that the standard was so low that you just kept having to be better somehow?
I never set out to be the standard or any of these things. I just I'm a fan of movies, and I just wanted to make movies. That's all I've ever wanted to do, was to make movies. So by Hollywood, pretty much what I've been trying to do all my life, and I don't have that much knowledge about anything. I just do stuff, and you know. So
And somehow it works.
Again, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I
How it
wanted
works, just kind of like hello?
No, I wanted to find out yeah, we can hear you. I wanted to find out how much of that was intentional. For example, how much of the quality of the style that you chose to shoot your work in, which bits of that did you choose that this is actually what I want to do because it is going to help me get to point X, for example. Because the thing about branding is, how you position yourself, and then how the client perceives you, and then that middle ground, rather how the final client experiences you, and then that middle ground is the brand. So it's your intentions and their experience. So that middle ground. Have you found that what you intended for people to consume and deliver and feel about the pieces that you produced is usually what they felt? Or have you then needed some time to go back to the drawing board to reconfigure and figure out how do I make sure that what it is that I want to communicate is what comes out? Basically, how much has branding, played in getting your pieces the visibility that they have gotten to date?
Well, those are two different things. The branding part is different. This is something I learned from advertising. Mine's an advertising agent. But in regards to the first thing you said, which, how do you make sure that the things come out the way you intend? This is something that I've had, because I don't know. I think we are born storytellers. So all of us, we tell stories, and it's very easy for people to believe that they can make films. It's very easy to watch other people and do better than this. Because I've told
Sorry, Lukman, we lost you there.
stories before. Time, in regards to the point you asked of how, in regards to quality, for example, my background is in drawing, and I remember when I was still young and I was still drawing, I wanted, if I'm drawing Bruce Willis, they have to look like Bruce Willis. And I was my own judge. So if it looks bad, I'm not going to console myself and tell myself that, oh, I'm just trying. I'm just 12 years old, so I shouldn't put myself at that level. So I brought the same kind of philosophy in my filmmaking. If I watch Avengers, there's a scene that I really like for Avengers, I'm going to try and recreate that scene. I don't really care if I'm in Africa and I don't have the resources. I'll find a way. I'll make sure that I look for a way to make that work. So I don't know what that means in regard to the question you're asking, but for me personally, I've always been the critic of my own work, and I want it to look a certain way. Like I want my work to look like Spielberg's work. You know, I don't have the money, but without the money, I think it takes a bit of creativity, and you figure out ways of kind of emulating some of the things that they do. Of course, you can't get the levels they get to, because there's some things that the only solution, the only way to get them is money. So those ones you just leave. But in regards to regular things like your thinking, just being creative, there's no, you don't need money for that. You don't need money to write an interesting story. You just need, I guess, you just need to practice. And for branding, I think it's very, very, very. I think more than ever now, it's very important for you to brand yourself, and in order to stand out, because there's so much stuff just around for you to come through and just have any eyes on you. I mean, you have to. I don't even know what the formula is. I think it just works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, but for me, my formula has always been, I do what makes me happy, and there must be other people like myself. There must be other Lukmans out there, and those are my audience. So I do. Sometimes I would make a short film, and people would come up with all these opinions. I think this guy should do this. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, there's probably someone who looks at it like me, and that's the guy it's for. It's not meant for the person who thinks this guy shouldn't have died. You know, there's plenty of things to watch out there for other people. Because I realized when you try to do things for everyone, you end up pleasing no one at all. So you need to like brand yourself and make sure that you just go for that group that's like you, that will appreciate what you're doing. And I think it's easy and it's less pressure, because now I don't have to think much. I don't have to try and please this community or and please that community. I just please me community, the people that are like myself. Because I can't possibly please everyone. I don't have the capabilities. I don't have a brain. I don't have. I mean, you know, the faculties needed.
Yeah. But, so what do you say to someone who says that, you know, as a start out, like you as Lukman, who has recently gotten a movie onto Netflix, now you have the stars to say that, you know, you've earned your seat at the table where you can say, hey, I'm going to do what I like, and if you like it, awesome. If you don't, there's other stuff for you to watch. What do you say to someone who says, I am not at that level yet, I need to understand what the market is like so that I can somewhat attempt to come as close as possible to produce for it? Because that's the way I'm most likely going to pitch a client, and they will give me that animation, you know, project to turn their whole medical textbook into a series that, you know, the medical students can watch and learn and pass. Like how do you reconcile those two things, or rather, what would you say to someone who says that you've earned those stars? So for you can say that, man. You can say, do the thing that's nice for you, and then perhaps there'll be someone out there who likes it.
I would tell them that they're wrong, because I've always been like that from day one. I've always done the kind of story that I think, like, first of all, like humor is subjective. Like I've done, like, I think my short film, The Bad Mexican, kind of a funny film. Not funny for everyone, but I find it funny, and I made it for I made it for other people that find that kind of stuff funny. So I think the moment you try to do things simply to please other people, you become disingenuous to yourself, and then you end up poorly representing yourself. Like you'll be known for the thing that you actually hate doing. So if you ever get the opportunity to actually do, let's say you're a character animator, and instead of doing the kind of animation you like, let's say you like Boondock style, or there's a certain style you like, but you're thinking that it's only the other style that is currently selling. It's only the other one that's selling. You forget that the most important thing is the story. It's not about the technique. Like I know how to shoot film. I think I could say I'm a pretty decent cinematographer, but what I find interesting are not the movies that are really shot well, but movies that have interesting stories. I don't really care how poorly shot they are. So it took me a while. I mean, it has taken me a while because I'm still in the process of shifting from that. But now I'm focusing more on the story. And while doing that, I've realized that it doesn't really matter if you have a good story, if you have a genuinely good story. It doesn't matter how you do it, or who you offend, or who doesn't get happy or whatever. There's a group that will. Did you know that there's a group of people that watch people eating food, and that's like something they like doing? Like a big chunk of people go online and watch a person eating, and that's entertainment to them. So I mean, if you told your mom that at some point in my life I'm going to be producing videos of people eating, your mom might say, I don't think there's a market for that. But I mean, should she wrong? Because there's a market for that. So I think for me, I advise people to just do what they're passionate about, and do it well, do it really well to the point where you would be inspired by it yourself.
Yeah.
I think you will find your market. It's better than pushing into a market that doesn't you're not happy with, because that will not last. You'll do it for a few weeks, and if the tide shifts and now they're looking at something else, now it's TikTok that they're looking at, and then you'll get disappointed and then you'll stop.
Yeah. Or you will need, so it's that idea of, rather than jumping into a crowded market and fighting to carve out a niche, are you able to then step out on the side, create your own blue ocean, and put in your own fish and start build your own fish pond basically, and grow the big fish within it. I wanted to give each one of us an opportunity to have some parting remarks, because our time is up. We've had some really, really amazing people from, I kept saying across the continent, but I was thoroughly wrong. It's like across the globe, man. And I would like to ask Deborah, Black woman animator, to give any parting shots, any parting remarks that you might have in about a minute, and then we'll go to Solomon, and Lukman, Miss K, in that order.
So an important thing about your own personal branding is consistency. So whether you're posting on Instagram, YouTube, wherever, be consistent, even if it's not the regular schedule you originally planned, like me for this year. As long as you keep going, people will start to notice you. Yeah. And you can follow me on Black Woman Animator, BLKWMN Animator, and Deb, the 3D modeler too. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Deborah. Solomon?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. First of all, it was awesome to meet some old friends here. Lukman, I see you. Oh, I didn't see you today. I just heard your voice. And
Sorry,
Hamid,
I was
so
on
thank you so
shoot, no
much.
light.
I think when I was yeah, Lukman just decided to go blank on us, like completely.
He was on a shoot with no lighting.
Right? Anyway, so I think, I mean, for my part, I always talk about, and Luke will agree with me, because we come from a similar background. Like, draw on your experiences, right? Whatever you've been through, those are going to be authentic to you. And I hope that we can focus on not waiting for other people to tell us our own stories, but to be able to be like trailblazers that take the African stories and actually tell it to other people. And be grateful for where you've come from. So Luke and I, we used to work at Steve Jean's studio, Steve Jean as Phenon. And so I am just grateful for people who have poured into me, who have inspired me to carry on and take what I've learned and make it better. And I think that carries through when you're branding yourself.
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed is that really appreciative people who say thank you so much a lot, are really, really well liked. One of those is Hamid. He joined us earlier. Hamid says it was such a pleasure to be part of this conversation, and he's open to having deeper conversations with everyone else who was on the panel. Yeah, so those were his parting remarks. Miss K, do you have any final remarks?
I'll say some final words. The thing that I always say is don't wait for somebody to discover you, discover yourself, and be okay with the fact that you're still figuring out what your branding will be. So you might start out as a student posting, I'm talking about myself, start out as a student posting whatever you might be posting at that time on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. And as you improve in your skills and as you improve in your knowledge of the industry, the way you present yourself to the world also improves. So be okay with your humble beginnings and know that as you keep putting yourself out there, you will grow and improve in the way that you present yourself to the world.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Miss K. Raymond, who was meant to join us, Raymond, the founder of Creatures Animation, is somewhere stuck in a national park. He's not warding off any lions or anything. He just has failed to find any reception. So he's safe and sound, also I hear. But that's why he was unable to join us today. Thank you so much, Miss K. And Lukman, do you have any final parting remarks for an artist who is trying to brand themselves and their craft in this digital era?
For me, I would say try to create as much as you can and try to improve all the time, and make sure that your work is seen, because that's why we create art. It's created to be seen. Don't just create stuff and keep it on your laptop.
Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Eugene Kavuma, founder of Kampala Design Week, design lover and enthusiast. And with the DG Art Fest, was looking forward to sharing with you guys that we'll be working on some epic projects as the Kampala Design Week together with the DG Art Fest regarding, deepening the understanding of the creative, the digital artists here in Uganda, and then on a wider scale, the creative people working within the creative and culture space. But also on top of that, understanding what and how much better we can, together with the Kampala Design Week and the DG Art Fest, sort of improve upon the skill set that the creatives that we work with within our context have. Thank you all our panelists, Solomon, Deborah, Miss K, Lukman Ali. I just know only one person on this panel. So usually when I'm on these panels, I know like 3. Now I feel like I feel left out. Yeah, I saw Solomon talking to Hamid. I felt left out. I saw Deborah talking to Miss K. I felt left out. But my name is Eugene Kavuma. It has been a pleasure. And for those of you who are stepping into the competition, the next step of the DG Art Fest, if you are based out of Uganda, I wish you umeme, and I hope that your yaka doesn't run out, and nor does your internet drop. For those of you joining us from across the world, you're lucky. These guys may drop off because I think they're really bad. It's been a pleasure hosting all of you here. It's been a pleasure having our panelists. And thank you so much to the DG Art Fest for putting this together, pulling all these amazing artists and skill set from across the world. It was nice to hear that quite a number of them were originally from Uganda. It gives me hope, not that I didn't have any, but just increases the volume. And it was nice to share on this conversation and learn from you all. My name is Eugene Kavuma, and have a good night.